The Dragon Rock.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes.
This story begins with Once Upon a Time, because the best stories do, of course. So, once upon a time, and imagine if you can, a steep side valley cluttered with giant spiky green pine trees, and a thick green grass that reaches to the top of your socks so that when you run, you have to bring your knees up high, like running through water. Wildflowers spread their sweet, heady perfume along the gentle breezes, and bees hum musically to themselves and then cheerily collect flower pollen. People are very happy here, and they work hard, keeping their houses spick and span and their children's faces clean. This particular summer has been very hot and dry, making the lean farm dogs sleepy and still. Farmers whistled lazily to themselves and would stand and stare into the distance, trying to remember what it was that they were supposed to be doing. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the town would be in a haze of slumber, with grandmas nodding over their knitting and farmers snoozing in the haystacks. It was very, very hot. No matter how hot the day, however, the children would always play in the gentle rolling meadows. With wide-brimmed hats and skins slippery with sunblock, they chittered and chattered like sparrows, and they frolicked in their favorite spot. Now, their favorite spot is very important to this story, because its particular spot is large, long, scaly rock that looks amazingly similar to a sleeping dragon. The children knew it was a dragon. The grown-ups knew it was a dragon. The dogs and cats and birds knew it was a dragon. But nobody was scared because it never ever moved. Boys and girls would clamber all over it, poking sticks at it, and hanging wet gumboots on its ears, but it didn't mind it at least. The menfolk would sometimes chop firewood on its zigzag tail, because it was just the right height, and the ladies' weaving group often spun sheep fleece on its spikes. Often on a cool night when the stars were twinkling brightly in this velvet sky and the children peacefully asleep, the grown-ups would settle for the evening with a mug of steaming cacao in a soft, cushioned armchair. Then the stories about how the dragon got there began. Nobody knew for sure. There were many different versions depending on which family told the tale. But one thing that everybody agreed on was this. In times of trouble, the dragon will wake and free the village by making a lake. This little poem was etched into everybody's mind, and sometimes appeared on tea towels in grandma's embroidery. The days went by slowly, quietly, and most importantly, without any rain. There had been no rain in the valley for as long as the children could remember. The wells were starting to bring up muddy brown water, and clothes had to be washed in yesterday's dishwater. The lawns were faded in crispy biscuit color, and the flowers drooped their beautiful heads. Even the trees seemed to bring their branches like weary arms. The valley turned browner and drier every hot, baking day. The townsfolk grew worried and would murmur to each other when passing with much shaking of heads and tut-tuts. They would look upwards, searching for rain clouds in the clear blue sky, but none ever came. "The tale of the dragon cannot be true," said old Mrs. Greywhistle, the shopkeeper. "It hasn't moved an inch, I swear," replied the customer, tapping an angry foot. It was now too hot for the children to play outside in the direct sunlight. They would gather under the shade of trees, digging holes in the dust and snapping brittle twigs. "The dragon will help us soon," said one chap. "He must do something," agreed another. "I'm sure he will." And they all nodded in agreement. A week went by with no change. People struggling along as best they could. Some were getting cross at the dragon and would cast angry, sideways looks at it when passing. The villagers would become skinny-eyed and sullen. Meanwhile, the children had a plan. Quickly and quietly they moved invisible around town, picking and plucking at the fading flowers. With outstretched arms and bouquets up to their chins, they rustled over to where the giant rock lay, as still as ever. Boys and girls placed bunches of flour around the dragon in a big circle. They scattered petals around its head and over its nose, then danced around and around it, skipping and chanting the rhyme that they all knew so well. In times of trouble, dragon will wake and save the village by making a lake. The searing heat made them dizzy and fuzzy, and finally they all fell in a sprawling heap at the bottom of the mound. They looked up at the rock. Nothing happened. Dry wind lazily picked up some flower heads and swirled them around. The air was thick with pollen and with perfume. The stony grey nostril twitched. "I saw something," cried the youngest boy. They stared intently. An ear swiveled like a periscope. The ground began to rumble. "Look out! Run! Run!" Children scampered in all directions, squeaking and squealing, arms pumping with excitement. The rumbling grew and grew. The dragon raised its sleepy head. It got onto its front feet and sat like a dog. It stood up and stretched, arching its long scaly back like a sleek, tabby cat. It blinked and looked around with kind, big, long-lashed eyes. Then its nostrils twitched and quivered again. The other folks were alerted by the screams and squeaks. The ladies held up their long skirts to run, and the men rolled their sleeves up, and soon the whole town stood together in a tight huddle at the foot of the hill, staring up at the large beast with mouths held open. "Huh? Huh?" The noise erupted from the dragon. "Ah! Ah!" Families gripped each other tight and shut their eyes. "Achoo!" The sneeze blasted from the dragon like a rocket, throwing it back 50 paces, causing a whirlwind of dust and dirt. Achoo! The second blast split open the dry earth, sending explosions of soil and tree roots high into the sky like missiles. Something else too. People heard the sound, but couldn't recognize it at first, for it had been so long since their ears had heard such tinkling melody. As their eyes widened in wonder, their smiles turned to the grins and then yahoos and hoorays. Water, cold, clear water, oozed, then trickled, then roared out of the hole, down the hillside and along the valley floor. The torrent knocked over a farmer's haystack, but he didn't care. The river carried away the school teacher's bike shed, but she cared not a yacht. It even demolished the ladies' bowling club changing rooms, but they howled with laughter and slapped their thighs. When the flood sent pools of water out towards the golf course, filling up 16 of the 19 holes, the men just hooted and whistled and threw their caps in the air. It used to be a dry, dirty dust bowl, now gleamed and glistened in the sunlight, sending playful waves and ripples across the lake, and inviting all to share. Sighed the dragon sleepily. And slowly his perfect movie star teeth, "Seeing as I am awake." And he lumbered for it with surprising grace and style, and disappeared into the cool dark water, with a small wave of a claw and a flick of his tail. They never saw him again. After families had restored and rebuilt the village, and set up sailing clubs for the children and scuba diving for the grandparents, they erected the bandstand and a monument in the spot where the dragon used to lay. Each year, to mark the occasion, they would bring garlands of flowers and herbs and arrange them in a big circle. The children would have the day off for school, for it was known as Weather Dragon Day, and wearing the dragon masks that they had been working on all day. And they would skip and clap and sing. The dragon helped us, as he said he would do. Hooray for the dragon, achoo, achoo, achoo. The end.
Awesome story.
It was a nice story, isn't it?
That was a quite nice story.
Yeah. Are you satisfied, sir?
Thank you. Next time.
No problem.
Next week too.
Next week, 2 stories.
Yeah, once every week.
We'll see. We'll see.